Welcome back to Arcade. We are going to add some more buttons. Now in the last video, we added a Rex UI button. If you remember, we were doing the Rex UI plugins and adding those buttons. Let's see, this is the rexrainbow.github.io is where you can find that. To see how we did it and all the problems we solved while doing it, check out that video. And in this one, we're going to look at another way of adding buttons by using the phaser.add.dom method using DOM elements provided by Phaser. So we're going to keep using the same project that we were. We're just going to make a new scene and use the DOM elements in that scene. So we're using the Phaser 3 parcel template that from the Arcade GitHub. You can use your own setup. It should be fine. We're using TypeScript. If you're using modern JavaScript, the code should be the same, just without types. So let's get started. I'll just go here in this right corner. So we're going to use DOM elements here. So Phaser lets us use any HTML element in our game. And that's how we're going to leverage existing CSS frameworks with all kinds of controls like buttons, radio buttons, checkboxes, all kinds of things. So we're going to use Bulma. You may have heard of other ones like Bootstrap, perhaps that's popular. But Bulma is a nice CSS framework that I like to use, so we're going to just use that. But using any other one should be about the same. The concepts are all the same. You just got to include the CSS file, and then you can use it the same way. So first, let's make a new scene for our Bulma demos. So let's just go to VS Code here. We're going to call this Bulma button demo scene.ts. Let's collapse this. So making our scene as you import from as usual. And we're going to call this the Bulma button scene. Demo scene, that's what I called it. Demo scene extends phaser.scene and constructor. I typed something class, missed the class. Okay, super. We're gonna just give it a key, Bulma demo. We don't have to preload anything, so we're just gonna go with create and do a console.log Bulma demo. So now let's go to our main, import Bulma button demo scene from scenes that. We'll just add it to our list here. So this Bulma button demo scene, put a button on it, and then when you click on that button, we're going to go to the Hello World scene. So just to show you that the game is currently working, so we're going to go back to this terminal. So npm run start, do a fresh run. We're going to go here. Okay, so from a fresh run, we have this scene. This is just the Phaser, the basic Phaser setup with the Phaser logo bouncing around. So we're going to go from our newly created Bulma button demo scene to this Hello World scene. So great, it's black. We have this log Bulma demo. So this scene is working. So now we want to install Bulma. So let's just view the docs here. Overview, start. So there's a few ways to install Bulma or Bootstrap or any other CSS framework that you like to use. We will use the CDN method, but you could install by npm if you wanted to, but we're going to actually just use the CDN. So we want, let's see, probably this one. And then how do I get the actual URL? Okay. So then, did they not give me a HTML tag to just add. That would be convenient. Download, npm, GitHub, homepage. Okay, Bulma's own homepage actually might. Nope. Style sheet. Yeah, let's do this. This is the JS deliver tag, URL with the CSS link tag. So let's go to our index.html, go into our head tag, drop that in. So in Phaser, now that actually is all we need for Bulma. We've now added it as a style sheet. But in Phaser, if you want to use the DOM element, any DOM element inside Phaser, you need to add create container true, and then you need to give it an actual element here. So I'm going to call this div, give it an ID. We're going to call this Phaser container, and close that div. So you do need this. It's not mentioned in the docs, but if you do not specify the div element or any element to render into Phaser, it will not work. So here, so this DOM create container, you set that up here. DOM, so we are using TypeScript, so let's put some types here to help us out. Game config. So DOM, okay, and then create container, we want to say true. And that div that we made right here with this Phaser container ID, we will pass that in as parent. Parent, go. And that, okay, so that's the setup that we need in order to use DOM elements in our Phaser game. So there's that. Okay, so we have that. Bulma's installed. Let's just make sure everything is still working. Okay. So there is a few ways to actually get that button into our game. So one way is to simply create the HTML element from scratch and then give it to Phaser. Right, so there's also, you can specify, so let's just see. So one way to do it is, let's say we're going to call this button, and then we're going to do document.create element, and it's going to be a div. And then let's see what's in options. What do we got in options? Okay, so nothing. Create element options. Let's see. What are our other methods that we can use? Create element options, that's deprecated. Tag name options. It's tag name options. This one's deprecated. And this one is tag name options. Okay, so there's a button. So button.class name returns the class, can be set to change it. Class list allows for class content, blah, blah. White space separated tokens through a DOM token list object. So can I do this? So in Bulma for a button, so now we install Bulma. Let's go here to documentation. So we can just add a button. So one of the elements Bulma has is a button. It looks sort of like this, and it needs to have class button, but we can like do the colors here. So like button is primary, for example. Dot class list. It's read-only property. Oops. Okay. Dot. How can I add classes? Class. How do we do class name? Right. Does this? So button is primary. Okay. So then there's that, and then button. Right. Dot value. Node value. We're going to call this. I don't know, click me. Okay, so that should be the button. Let's just give it a try and see if that actually works. I'm going to put this at 400, 300, and the element can be a string or HTML element. I'm going to do that. Let's see what we get. We get a little button here. So that's the primary color. There is no text. So let's see. we're just guessing, but we can obviously, I think it's child, append child. It's got to be a node when I give you text. Is that considered a node? No. All right, so let's read some docs. So it's the HTML element. So let's see, how do we add a value to it? Inner text, that's right. Button dot, well, I think I'm right at least. Let's read this. Render text content of this node and its descendants. I think this is right. Click me. Well, I prefer single quotes. Okay. All right, so there's our button. It's super easy to set up. If you're using Bootstrap, it would be the same. You just got to figure out whatever the classes are and however that setup is. So the more complex the setup would be, so in Bulma, you can see there's only one level, right, for buttons. If you want to throw an icon in there too, it would be more. There's an example here with an icon perhaps that we can show. So here, so right here you see button and then there's a span in it and then you close out the button. If you put text in, it would be right there too. You have to also then add a span element to this. So it becomes sort of unwieldy to make. So let's just try it, right? So we would need font awesome actually. Let's do that. Font awesome. Let's use some font awesome. Start for free. Where's your CDN? Font awesome. CDN. Okay, fine. Font awesome. CDN. I'm actually sure. Bootstrap CDN. Okay. Index. So we're going to basically do this same thing. Link rel style sheet href and then the CDN URL. Okay. You can actually also omit this HTTPS so that it can auto-determine, but we'll just leave that alone. That's font awesome. Okay, let's go back here. So if we want to put this, let's say this GitHub button, GitHub icon, right, it would be like this. So this GitHub icon here, and then this GitHub text, let's say. Well, we'll just leave our text to say, click me. So there's a span element in the button element. So we would then do, let's say, span icon document dot create element. So we're going to create a span element. And then this span icon has class name, as we can see, icon, and then it has a I tag, italics tag inside. So there's that. So first button dot add append child span icon, right? And then we're going to do, I don't know, icon node. See, even naming them is going to be confusing. The more elements you have in there, but this is going to be a italics tag. And then so icon node dot class name. So we're going to do fab for font awesome bold black. I don't exactly remember. And then font awesome FA GitHub. So that's that. That's great. So span icon append child. This is the icon node. And then add to the button. Oh, then well, let's see. How does this render? It may render okay. Yes. What am I looking at here? That is not the icon. I think GitHub. So we can actually, because it is a DOM element, we can do inspect element. This obviously does not work normally in Phaser because you can't inspect things inside the canvas. Button is primary. Beautiful. Inside, click me, span, icon. I, class, FAB, FA-GitHub. Okay, so that looks right. And now let's go back to this button class button. FAFA GitHub. So that all looks good. So that just put this. So we don't want this. We're going to do a text span. So you see this is actually getting highly, highly out of hand here. To construct this, it is a pain in the ass span. And you really can't reason about it too well. Class name, there is no class name, right? Because HTML is just not written this way, right? This is not how we write HTML. So there is a solution here. It is called JSX. You may be familiar with it if you've used React. This just doesn't work at all. Oh, because I did not. Let's see, button.append child. So if you use React, you may have used JSX. It's basically, it lets you write HTML in JavaScript, and then it'll compile it down to these create element calls and all that stuff for you. Then you can just write regular HTML like this. So now why is this icon not showing up? It's probably because my CDN is not so great, isn't it? Let's try Cloudflare. I will take all. So for whatever reason, oh no, I don't want the JS. What am I doing? Reading. Reading is fundamental. All right, so there's the icon. So you can use any icon on Font Awesome. If you want to use material design icons or Ionic icons, whomever's icons you'd like, you can use them here this way. So, but let's just go back here, or not this one, it's collapsed. You can see this is really a pain in the ass to construct. If you could just have constructed it this way in way more readable HTML tags that the rest of the web uses for CSS frameworks. So we will cover how to do JSX with Phaser, but first we have this button. So let's do set. We may have to do set interactive. Oh no, I don't think we do. I think we're going to do dot add listener, right? So we're going to add the native DOM click event and then dot on. So this is now the Phaser event emitter that you've probably used Phaser events, and you use dot on. Actually, we only use dot once. Dot click, and then it takes a function. I actually don't care what the arguments would have been because we are simply going to change scene. Before we do that, let's do a log here, and we'll call it button click. So we're using dot one, so this will only register one time. Let's go to console here, click, button click, will now work the second time, okay. So now we're gonna do this dot scene dot start. I'm gonna start the hello world scene, which we define here. This is the key, that's one we're using. So click, and here it is. Ta-da. So we can have bigger buttons. So in Bulma, I believe it just is large. That'll give us a bigger button right here. Big button. And with Bulma, you could customize colors. You could also do it here using the style property, I think. Although it's probably better to make a custom Bulma build. So there's that. So now let's actually look at adding JSX because this is just terribly hard to read. So since, like I said, JSX is from React, we're not using React, but we can basically shim all of that for us, like the parts of React that we need to use JSX. So there's a library called JSX-DOM here, which lets us use JSX to create DOM elements, which is exactly what we want. So here, let's now install. So you do need to have using npm for this. So npm install JSX DOM. So we're not using -save because in the more recent versions of npm, it automatically adds it to our dependencies list. So it's going, it's taking a while. Rollback failed optional. Did it actually stop or is it not going? There it goes. So basically what it's going to let us do, and we're using parcel, so there's no other setup we need to do. Depending on your bundler and your setup, you may have to add some sort of loader to actually handle these files, JSX files. There may be a JSX loader, or you gotta like change some configs to get that to work in Webpack or Rollup or something. Maybe a plugin there. Rollup uses plugins, I believe. To check the bundle you're using to figure out exactly what to do. In Parcel, it just works because it's a great zero config application bundler. All right, so here what we're going to do is simply make a JSX file or a TSX file, but we're going to call this, I don't know, play button.jsx, right? And what we're going to do is, let's call this play button. And I believe this is the syntax. And we're going to just take this exact same GitHub button. Do that. Instead of saying GitHub, we're going to say click me, just like we had before. Although then you can't tell if it's actually working. Call play. Call play, GitHub icon, that's fine. Okay, so export default play button. You see we're writing HTML here. As you see here, normally you don't got to do create element, you don't got to like append child, none of that. Go here, we are going to just comment this out for now. And then up here, import play button from play button. So this is an any. I thought it would give me an HTML, but nonetheless, do this. And I think it'll work. Let's see. Okay, got to run this. npm run start. Let's collapse. Right. I think Parcel is basically installing JSX support. Takes a little bit longer than a normal rerun. Parcel is fast, but usually on the subsequent runs, not the initial run when you make significant changes. Nope. Oh, yes. There is one step. So we need to shim JSX. So we demonstrate some of that here. Just remember what we did. I always say you can look it up, don't bother memorizing it. It doesn't help you. So we're going to make this shim class. So we need to do this because JSX sort of assumes you can access React globally. But of course, we don't have React in our app. We're not using React. So we need to simply shim it with JSX DOM. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do JSX DOM shim.ts. Paste that in. So we're basically importing all of JSX DOM as React and then adding to window a React property so that you can then call React globally. And then in our index file with Parcel, we can have multiple entry points. So the first one is going to be our shim and then our game. And here we go. So this is the Bulma button. As you can see, play button. Nope. Where's my button? Here it is. So we can do is primary, just to make this color look what we had before. Okay, is large. This is clearly much easier to edit than this mess over here. This stuff. So let's see, how can we fix this? React element. So usually what I actually do is I make this a function so that you can, so I'm going to return. So JSX is written inside, what do you call these, parentheses. And what we can do is, of course, stick like a name in here. So this would be, let's say normally this is, hello, this is play. And then we can here, and I believe it's just single brackets play, but we can actually just check the documentation here. But just give it. No, yeah, okay, yes, single quotes, single brackets. And I'm not sure if this would help. Okay. No, I must have it slightly wrong. Oh no, what do they call this? Name. What am I writing? Name. Cool. So then, from here you can then say, click me. And it'll just do it. So much nicer, you can delete all of this. And it will look just like this. So this is much easier to use, very clearly easier to use. So with Bulma, I'll just give you guys, if you're not familiar with Bulma, there's also this open source project called Bulma Swatches that you can very quickly and very easily basically use these different pre-made Bulma themes, right? So there's, Cerulean, Cosmo, Cyborg. This gives you like a quick theme for your UI to use. And if you're going to use another CSS framework, something like this might exist. But this is at least my recommended way of using UI, is to leverage the existing HTML/CSS ecosystem of great frameworks and great controls, buttons, tabs, sliders, all kinds of things, and use that in your game UI. It won't be as styled if you're using highly styled buttons, like with textures of wood paneling or something. You need to make your own button or use a different UI framework like Rex UI that lets you specify images in your buttons. So be sure to come back for our next video where we show you how to make a custom button that you can make do whatever you want.